He lost 5 times, 5 elections, 5 defeats. Each one met with the same advice: step aside, let someone else try. He didn't. 2021, 6th attempt, and this time, something different happened in Zambia. Something that shocked the continent and made political scientists rewrite their assumptions about African democracy. Hakainde Hichilema went from businessman to underdog to president, but that's not the story. The story is what he did in those 15 years between the first loss and the final win. How he turned failure into strategy. How he built a movement that outlasted fatigue, violence, and a system designed to keep him out. Because this wasn't just about winning, it was about proving something everyone said was impossible. August 12, 2021, Lusaka, Zambia. The sun hasn't risen yet, but the streets are already alive. Thousands of people are moving through the darkness toward polling stations across the capital. Some have been walking since midnight. Others slept on the pavement, refusing to risk losing their place in line. The air tastes like dust and anticipation. In a modest house in the suburb of Kabulonga, a 59-year-old man sits at his kitchen table, sipping tea. Hakainde Hichilema isn't sleeping. He hasn't slept properly in weeks. His wife, Mutinta, watches him from the doorway. She knows that look, the one he gets when everything is on the line. This is his 6th attempt at the presidency. 6 times he stood before the people of Zambia and asked them to believe. 5 times they've said no. 5 times he's been called a loser, a fool, a stubborn businessman who doesn't know when to quit. But something is different this time. Outside, a car pulls up. His security team. They are taking him to vote at his designated polling station. As he steps out into the cool morning air, he can hear it, the hum of a nation holding its breath. Across the city, President Edgar Lungu is preparing for his own day. He is confident. The system has been good to him. The state machinery, the police, the Electoral Commission, they all lean his way. He's used every tool at his disposal to ensure this election goes in his favor. He's arrested opposition leaders, shut down media outlets, and flooded the country with cash handouts. But you can't buy everyone. The lines at polling stations stretch for blocks. Old women in chitendi wraps, young men in faded t-shirts, students, vendors, farmers who've traveled from distant provinces. They stand for hours under the rising sun, refusing to leave until they cast their vote. This isn't just an election. This is a reckoning. For 16 years, the Patriotic Front has ruled Zambia. For 16 years, they've promised prosperity while the Kwacha collapsed, while jobs disappeared, while hospitals ran out of medicine, while electricity flickered on and off like a dying heartbeat. The national debt has ballooned to suffocating levels. Young people graduate with degrees and nowhere to go. And Hakainde Hichilema, HH as everyone calls him, has watched it all. He's spoken out against every injustice, attended every protest, spent nights in prison cells for daring to challenge power. He's been tear-gassed, beaten, vilified on state television as an agent of foreign interests. But he never stopped. The polls close at 6 p.m. The counting begins. In homes across Zambia, families gather around radios and phones, refreshing social media feeds, waiting for news from polling stations. The early numbers start trickling in. HH is leading. Not by a little, by a landslide. But to understand this moment, this improbable victory, you have to go back. Back to a time before the politics, before the wealth, before the 5 crushing defeats. You have to go back to a small village in southern province where a boy learned the lessons that would carry him through everything to come. June 4th, 1962, Mons District. Hakainde Hichilema is born into a Zambia that doesn't exist yet. The country is still called Northern Rhodesia, still a British colony, still ruled by men in London who've never felt African soil beneath their feet. His parents are cattle herders, simple people who measure wealth in livestock and rainfall. They live in a village without electricity, without running water, without the luxuries that will one day define his life. But they have something more valuable. They have vision. His father looks at his newborn son and makes a decision. This boy will not spend his life herding cattle. This boy will go to school. In rural Zambia in the 1960s, this isn't a given. Education costs money that farming families don't have. It means sending your child away, losing their labor, investing in an uncertain future. But Hichilema's parents believe. They scrape together every ngui, every spare quarter. They sell cattle when they have to. They go without so their son can have books. Young Hakainde walks miles to school each day. His classmates are the children of subsistence farmers, of small traders, of people who understand that education is the only ladder out of poverty. The schoolhouse is a simple structure, concrete walls, tin roof, wooden benches worn smooth by generations of students. But inside those walls, something transforms. He's brilliant. Not just smart, brilliant. Mathematics comes to him like breathing. Economics makes perfect sense. While other children struggle with numbers, he sees patterns, connections, the invisible architecture of how things work. His teachers notice. They push him harder. They see something rare, a mind that can compete anywhere in the world. 1976. 14-year-old Hakainde sits for his grade 7 exams. These tests determine everything: which secondary school you attend, whether you have a future beyond your village. He doesn't just pass, he excels. He earns a spot at one of Zambia's best secondary schools. But even this comes with a price. The school is far from home. He lives in dormitories, sees his family only during holidays. At night, while other boys sleep, he studies by candlelight. Not because he has to, because he wants to understand everything. How economies rise and fall, how nations build wealth, how ordinary people escape the trap of poverty. His mother visits when she can, bringing food from the village, checking on his son. She doesn't fully understand the textbooks scattered across his bed, the complex equations, the economic theories, but she understands hunger. She sees it in his eyes, not for food, but for knowledge, for something more. 1980. Hakainde graduates from secondary school at the top of his class. He's 18 years old and he's earned something even rarer than good grades, a scholarship to the University of Zambia. His parents celebrate. Their cattle herder's son is going to university. At UNZ, he studies economics and business administration. The campus in Lusaka is a world away from Mons, a place where ideas collide, where students debate politics and philosophy late into the night, where the future of Africa is being imagined by young people who believe they can change everything. Hakainde thrives. He doesn't just learn theory, he questions it. Why are African nations still poor after independence? Why does the wealth from copper mines flow out of Zambia while the people remain desperate? Why do Western economic models fail when transplanted to African soil? He is not content with just understanding, he wants to fix it. 1986. He graduates with his first degree, but he's not done. He earns a scholarship to the University of Birmingham in England for his master's degree. A village boy from Mons walking through the halls of a British university.
His parents have never left Zambia. Now their son is studying in the country that once colonized them. The irony isn't lost on him. In Birmingham, he deepens his understanding of economics, of business strategy, of how wealth is created and distributed. But he also sees something else. He sees that African brilliance can compete with anyone, anywhere. He is not intimidated by his European classmates. He matches them. He surpasses them. And all the while, one thought burns in his mind. I'm going to take this knowledge home. I'm going to use it to build something.
(1994) Lusaka, Zambia. Hakainde Hichilema returns home with 2 degrees and a head full of ideas. Zambia is transforming. President Frederick Chiluba has opened up the economy, privatizing state-owned companies, inviting foreign investment. It's the era of liberalization, a time when fortunes can be made or lost in the blink of an eye. But most Zambians aren't making fortunes. They are losing jobs as state companies collapse. They are watching as foreign investors buy up national assets for pennies on the dollar. The promise of capitalism is leaving ordinary people behind. HH sees the chaos differently. He sees opportunity. He joins Coopers & Lybrand, one of the world's premier accounting and consulting firms. He's sharp, analytical, exactly what they need during this turbulent privatization period. They assign him to some of the biggest deals in the country, evaluating companies, assessing assets, helping determine which state enterprises should be sold and for how much. He's good at it, exceptional actually. He can look at a struggling company and see its hidden value. He can read balance sheets like others read novels. He understands debt structures, cash flows, market positioning. But more than that, he understands timing. Within months, he's promoted. Within a year, he's one of the firm's most valuable consultants. He's working 18-hour days, traveling across Zambia, meeting with government officials and foreign investors. He's 26 years old and he's helping reshape the Zambian economy. But he's watching, learning, taking notes. He sees which companies are undervalued. He sees which industries are about to boom. He sees exactly where the smart money should be positioned, and he realizes something crucial. If he can advise others on how to build wealth, why can't he build it himself? 1998, he makes his move. He leaves Coopers & Lybrand and dives into the private sector with both feet. He joins Grant Thornton as chief executive, but that's just the beginning. He starts investing. Cattle ranching, he understands it from childhood, knows the margins, knows the market. Financial services, Zambia's banking sector is expanding and someone needs to provide auditing and consulting. Real estate, Lusaka is growing and land values are climbing. He's not gambling. Every investment is calculated, researched, thought through from every angle. He borrows when he needs to, but never recklessly. He builds relationships with banks, with other businessmen, with the emerging Zambian middle class. He's courteous, professional, relentlessly focused. And it works. By the early 2000s, Hakainde Hichilema is becoming wealthy. Not inherited wealth, not corrupt wealth, earned wealth. He owns cattle ranches across southern province, thousands of head of cattle managed with modern techniques, proper veterinary care, efficient breeding programs. He has stakes in financial firms, in consulting businesses, in property development. He's still in his 30s and he's already one of Zambia's most successful businessmen. His old friends from Monze barely recognize him now. The boy who walked miles to school now drives a Mercedes. The son of cattle herders now owns entire ranches. But those who know him well see something else. He hasn't changed where it matters. He still remembers where he came from. He still sends money back to his village. He still believes in the power of education, of hard work, of building something real. He marries Mutinta. She's educated, grounded, someone who understands both worlds, the traditional village life and the modern business sphere. They build a family, 3 children,
A home in Kabulonga, one of Lusaka's better neighborhoods, but not ostentatious, not a mansion, just a comfortable house where their kids can grow up with stability. His business empire expands. He becomes CEO of Coopers & Lybrand, Zambia, the same firm where he started as a consultant. He's advising government ministers, sitting on corporate boards, moving in circles of power and influence. People start calling him HH, partly as a nickname, partly out of respect. By 2006, he's a millionaire several times over. He's achieved everything his parents dreamed of and more. The cattle herder's son has beaten the system. He's proof that an African with nothing but education and determination can build generational wealth. He should be satisfied. He should be content to keep building his empire, to pass it on to his children, to enjoy the fruits of his labor. But something is gnawing at him. He looks around Zambia and he sees the gap widening. He sees young people, brilliant kids just like he was, with no opportunities. He sees corruption becoming normalized. He sees foreign companies extracting Zambia's resources while ordinary Zambians sink deeper into poverty. He sees the promise of independence, the dream of a prosperous African nation, slowly dying. And he realizes that making money isn't enough. Building a personal fortune while his country crumbles isn't the legacy he wants. He thinks about his parents, sacrificing everything so he could get an education. He thinks about his teachers pushing him to excel. He thinks about all the people who never got the chances he got, who are just as smart, just as capable, but were born in the wrong place at the wrong time. Someone needs to fix this. Someone who understands economics, who can't be bought, who knows how wealth is actually created. Someone like him. (2006), a conference room in Lusaka. The United Party for National Development is in crisis. They are Zambia's main opposition party, but they are fractured, directionless, stuck in old patterns. Their founding leader, Anderson Mazoka, died 2 years ago, and the party has been adrift ever since. They need fresh energy. They need someone who understands modern economics. They need someone who can't be intimidated by the ruling party's machinery. They need someone like Hakainde Hichilema. The party elders approach him quietly. Would he consider joining? Would he run for party president? They know his reputation. The brilliant economist, the self-made businessman, the man who turned education into empire. They need that energy, that credibility. HH listens. His business associates think he's crazy. Why would a successful businessman wade into the dirty waters of Zambian politics? Politics is for the desperate, the corrupt, the power-hungry. It's a game where fortunes are stolen, not earned, where principles are traded for position. But HH sees something else. He sees a platform, a chance to take everything he's learned about economics, about building sustainable systems, about creating real value, and apply it to an entire nation. His wife, Mutinta, knows that look in his eyes. She's seen it before when he's made up his mind about something. She doesn't try to talk him out of it. She just asks one question. Are you ready for what this will cost? He thinks he is. He has no idea. October 2006. The UPND holds its party convention. Hakainde Hichilema steps onto the stage, a businessman in a room full of career politicians. He's younger than most of them, wealthier than all of them. Some resent him immediately. Who is this rich man who thinks he can just walk into politics? But when he speaks, something shifts. He doesn't talk like a politician, no empty promises, no flowery rhetoric. He talks like an economist who actually cares. He breaks down Zambia's problems with precision: the unsustainable debt, the failed economic policies, the corruption that bleeds resources away from hospitals and schools. He doesn't just criticize, he offers solutions, detailed, practical, achievable solutions. The delegates vote. Hakainde Hichilema becomes the president of the United Party for National Development. He's 44 years old, he's never held political office, and he's just put a target on his back. The ruling Movement for Multi-Party Democracy watches this development with interest. President Levi Mwanawasa and his advisors see HH as a curiosity, not a threat. A businessman playing at politics. He'll learn soon enough that running a country isn't like running a company. But HH isn't playing. He hits the ground running. He travels to every province, every district, listening to people, not giving speeches at them, listening. In villages without clean water, in townships without electricity, in mining communities where men die underground for poverty wages. He takes notes, he asks questions. He starts to understand the depth of Zambia's crisis in ways that no spreadsheet could ever show him. And he starts to speak truth to power. When the government announces another questionable mining deal, HH breaks it down publicly, showing exactly how much revenue Zambia is losing. When ministers claim the economy is growing, he pulls out the data, showing how that growth isn't reaching ordinary people. When corruption scandals emerge, he doesn't just condemn, he explains the systemic changes needed to prevent them. The ruling party starts to take him seriously. This isn't just another opposition politician who shouts about injustice and offers nothing concrete. This is someone who actually understands how things work, someone who can't be dismissed as ignorant or naive. So they try a different approach. They try to destroy him. The state media launches attacks. They call him a rich elitist who can't relate to ordinary Zambians. They dig into his business dealings, looking for anything questionable. They spread rumors. He's funded by foreign interests. He wants to sell Zambia to the West. He's anti-poor, anti-tradition, anti-Zambian. None of it sticks. His record is too clean. His businesses are legitimate. His wealth was earned, not stolen. And the more they attack him, the more people start to wonder, why are they so afraid of him? 2008, presidential elections. President Mwanawasa has died unexpectedly, and the country is heading for the polls. This is HH's first real test. Can the businessman turned politician actually win votes? He campaigns relentlessly. His message is simple. Zambia can do better. We have the resources, the talent, the potential. We just need leadership that understands economics, that can't be corrupted, that puts the nation first. Election day comes. The votes are counted. He loses. Not by much. He comes in third, but it's still a loss. The Patriotic Front's Michael Sata narrowly loses to the MMD's Rupiah Banda. HH's party gets less than 20% of the vote. The business community breathes a sigh of relief. He tried politics, it didn't work out. Surely now he'll come back to the private sector where he belongs. But HH doesn't quit. He doubles down. He spends the next 3 years building the party, refining his message, expanding his coalition. When 2011 elections roll around, he's ready for another fight. Again, he loses. Michael Sata wins this time, and HH comes in third. 2 elections, 2 defeats. His critics mock him, the businessman who can't close a deal. Some in his own party start to grumble. Maybe he's not electable. Maybe Zambia isn't ready for a technocrat. Maybe they need someone more charismatic, more traditional. HH absorbs every criticism, every loss, every setback, and he keeps going. Because he's learned something crucial from his business career. Success isn't about never failing. It's about failing, learning, adjusting, and trying again. Every great company he built went through rough patches. Every successful investment required patience. Why should politics be different?
October 2014. Sata is dead.
Cancer has claimed Zambia's president, and once again, the nation is thrust into elections. This is HH's third attempt. 3 times at bat. 3 chances to prove he's not just a stubborn businessman who doesn't know when to quit. The campaign is brutal. The Patriotic Front, now led by Edgar Lungu, has learnt from previous elections. They are not taking HH lightly anymore. They unleash everything: state resources, media propaganda, intimidation tactics. They paint him as a tribalist, claiming he only cares about his Tonga people in southern province. They say he's too wealthy to understand suffering. They call him a puppet of Western powers. January 2015. The results come in. Edgar Lungu wins by the narrowest of margins, less than 28,000 votes out of nearly 5 million cast. HH contests the results, pointing to irregularities, to ballot boxes that arrived pre-marked, to polling stations where his agents were violently thrown out. The courts dismiss his petition. Lungu is sworn in. 3 elections, 3 losses, and this one hurts differently because it was so close. HH can taste it. The presidency was within his reach, just beyond his fingertips. But something else happens. Something shifts in the nation's consciousness. People start to see him differently, not as a businessman dabbling in politics, but as a genuine alternative, someone who refuses to give up, someone who actually believes in what he's fighting for. The Patriotic Front sees this shift too, and they don't like it. 2016. The next presidential election is coming. Lungu is seeking a full term. HH is campaigning again, his 4th attempt, and the crowds are getting bigger. Young people especially are gravitating toward him. They are tired of the same old politicians with the same old corruption. They want someone who actually understands economics, who built something real before entering politics. But the PF has decided HH cannot be allowed to win. April 2017. HH is traveling from Lusaka to Southern Province when his motorcade is stopped. Not by police, by military vehicles. Armed soldiers surround his convoy. They claim he didn't give way to the presidential motorcade, that he endangered the president. It's absurd. HH's convoy was nowhere near Lungu's. But truth doesn't matter anymore. They raid his house. Dozens of police officers, heavily armed, smashing through his gate at midnight. They tear through his home while his family watches in terror. They confiscate computers, documents, anything they can grab. They are looking for evidence of treason, they claim. What they are really doing is sending a message. Challenge us and we'll destroy you. They arrest him. Not just arrest, they charge him with treason. Treason, a capital offense in Zambia. They throw him in Mukobeko Maximum Security Prison, the same facility that houses murderers and violent criminals. Hakainde Hichilema, the cattle herder's son who became a millionaire through hard work and education, is now prisoner number 1867. He sleeps on a concrete floor. He eats the same tasteless nsima as convicted felons. He shares a cell block with men who have nothing left to lose. The PF thinks this will break him, that he'll see prison walls and realize politics isn't worth it, that he'll make a deal, drop out of politics, keep your wealth, live quietly. They don't understand who they are dealing with. Inside Mukobeko, HH doesn't despair. He organizes, he reads law books, he encourages other prisoners, listening to their stories, understanding their struggles. Some of them are political prisoners too, activists, journalists, critics of the government. Others are there for real crimes, but even they respect him. Here's a rich man who could be living in luxury, but instead he's in prison because he wouldn't bow to power. Outside, Zambia erupts, not in violence, in defiance. Civil society groups mobilize. International pressure builds. The churches speak out. Even some PF members privately expressed discomfort. Charging your political opponent with treason? This is how dictatorships operate, not democracies. His lawyers fight back. They file petition after petition. They argue that the charges are politically motivated, that there's no evidence of treason. The government's case is absurd. HH's crime was supposedly not giving way to a presidential motorcade fast enough. But the case drags on. Days turn to weeks, weeks turn to months. HH spends 127 days in prison, 4 months of his life behind bars for the crime of being effective opposition. August 2017. The courts finally cave to pressure. They drop the treason charges. HH walks out of Mukobeko prison, thinner, older, but unbroken. Thousands of supporters are waiting for him. They are chanting, singing, celebrating. But HH isn't celebrating. He's angry. Not bitter angry, focused angry. The kind of anger that doesn't explode, but burns slow and steady, fueling determination. They tried to break him with prison. They failed. Now he knows exactly what he's up against. This isn't a political game anymore. This is a fight for Zambia's soul. 2021 elections are coming. His 5th attempt. Some call him delusional. How many times will you lose before you give up? But HH has never seen it as losing. He's seen it as building. Every campaign he reaches more people. Every debate he presents better solutions. Every election he comes closer. And the PF's tactics, the arrests, the propaganda, the intimidation, they are not signs of strength. They are signs of desperation. They are afraid of him because they know what he knows. Zambia is tired. Tired of corruption, tired of economic collapse, tired of leaders who make promises and deliver poverty. The question isn't whether change will come. The question is whether Zambians will be brave enough to choose it when the moment arrives.
(2018) Lusaka. Hakainde Ichilema is sitting in his office, reviewing economic data. Outside, life goes on. People hustle in the markets. Children walk to schools that lack textbooks. Hospitals run short of medicine. The kwacha continues its slow, painful decline against the dollar. This is what losing looks like when you refuse to accept it as final. 4 attempts at the presidency, 4 defeats, 127 days in prison, character assassination in state media, death threats. His business is targeted by tax authorities, not because of wrongdoing, but because harassment is easier than honest competition. Anyone else would have quit by now, gone back to their comfortable life, their wealth, their family. Politics is a brutal game, and HH has paid more than his share of the price. But he's never been anyone else. He thinks about the patterns. 2008, 3rd place. 2011, 3rd place again. 2015, 2nd place, lost by less than 1%. 2016, 2nd place again, but closer. Each election, he's gaining ground. Each campaign, more people are listening. The trend line is clear if you know how to read data. And reading data is what HH does best. But data doesn't account for pain, for the toll this is taking on his family. His children growing up with a father who is either campaigning or in prison. His wife, Mutinta, carrying the weight of worry every time he leaves the house, wondering if this is the day the PF decides harassment isn't enough. She finds him late one night, still working, still planning. "You know you don't have to do this," she says. Not accusatory, just honest. They have enough. They could leave politics behind, enjoy their wealth, watch their children grow up without the shadow of political persecution. HH looks at her with tired eyes. "I know," he says, "but if not me, then who?" It's not arrogance, it's calculation. He's looked at the opposition landscape.
Most politicians are either compromised, incompetent, or both. The few good ones lack either the economic expertise or the resources to mount a serious challenge. HH has both. He has the knowledge to fix Zambia's economy and the personal wealth that makes him harder to bribe or intimidate. Walking away would be choosing comfort over duty, and that's not who his parents raised him to be. 2019, the economic situation is deteriorating rapidly. Zambia's debt has ballooned to unsustainable levels. The PF government has borrowed billions from China, from international bondholders, from anyone willing to lend. They've spent it on infrastructure projects that look good in photos but don't generate revenue. Shiny highways that lead nowhere, convention centers that sit empty, vanity projects while the country drowns in debt. HH watches it happen like a doctor watching a patient ignore medical advice. He knows exactly where this leads. He's been warning about it for years. Unsustainable borrowing, corruption, economic mismanagement. No one in power listened. Now the bill is coming due. The kwacha collapses. What cost 10 kwacha yesterday costs 15 today, 20 tomorrow. Inflation eats through people's savings. Businesses close. Foreign investors flee. The copper mines, Zambia's economic backbone, can't compensate for the mismanagement of national resources. And COVID-19 arrives. March 2020. The pandemic hits Zambia like it hits everywhere else, but Zambia is less prepared than most. The healthcare system is already fragile. Hospitals lack basic supplies. Doctors and nurses are overworked and underpaid. When the virus spreads, the system buckles. The PF government's response is chaotic. Mixed messages, inadequate support for citizens, economic relief packages that somehow end up benefiting politically connected individuals while ordinary Zambians starve. HH and the UPND organize their own response. They distribute food to struggling families. They provide PPE to healthcare workers. They run community education campaigns about the virus. It's not about politics anymore. It's about survival. But the PF can't even let that happen without interference. They accuse HH of politicizing the pandemic. When UPND members distribute food, police show up to disperse them. When they try to help, they are told they are breaking lockdown rules, while PF officials hold rallies and campaign events with impunity. The hypocrisy is staggering, and people notice. 2020 bleeds into 2021. The economic crisis deepens. Zambia defaults on its debt, the first African nation to do so during the pandemic. The currency is in free fall. Unemployment is skyrocketing. Young people with university degrees are selling tomatoes on the street corners because there are no jobs. Families are skipping meals. The electricity grid is failing. Load shedding becomes routine. You are lucky if you get 8 hours of power a day. This is what 16 years of PF rule has delivered. This is the promise of prosperity turned into the reality of poverty. Edgar Lungu knows he's in trouble. His approval ratings are tanking. Even PF loyalists are questioning the direction. So he changes the rules. He tries to postpone the elections. Too dangerous during COVID, he claims. The country needs stability, not campaigns. It's transparent. Everyone can see what he's doing. He's afraid to face voters because he knows what they'll say. International pressure forces him to back down. The elections will happen. August 2021. HH begins his 5th campaign. His team is exhausted. His supporters are worried. 5 attempts. Can lightning strike this time? Or will it be another heartbreak? Another narrow loss? Another 5 years of suffering? But something is different this time. HH can feel it when he campaigns. The crowds are bigger. The energy is different. It's not just hope. It's determination. People aren't coming to his rallies just to listen. They are coming to commit. They are tired of suffering. They are tired of watching their country collapse while leaders get rich. They are ready for change. Real change. The question is, if the PF will let it happen.
May 2021, 3 months until Election Day. Zambia is a powder keg. Every indicator that matters to ordinary people is flashing red. The International Monetary Fund has cut off support. The World Bank is expressing serious concerns. Credit rating agencies have downgraded Zambian debt to junk status. The country owes over $12 billion to foreign creditors and has no way to pay it back. But statistics don't capture what this feels like on the ground. In Lusaka's compounds, the sprawling townships where most people live, mothers are watering down cooking oil to make it last. Families are eating 1 meal a day. Children are dropping out of school because parents can't afford the fees that were supposed to be eliminated years ago. The desperation is palpable, thick in the air like smoke from charcoal braziers. In the Copper Belt, once Zambia's industrial heartland, mines are operating at reduced capacity. Workers who used to bring home steady wages now face irregular hours, pay cuts, dangerous conditions. The mining companies are still profitable, but somehow that profit doesn't translate into better lives for the miners who risk everything underground. Across the country, hospitals are crumbling. Doctors and nurses haven't been paid in months. Medical supplies are scarce. People are dying from preventable diseases because the healthcare system has been bled dry by corruption and mismanagement. A woman goes into labor and there's no electricity for the delivery room. A child needs surgery, but there are no anesthetics. These aren't hypotheticals. This is daily reality. And Edgar Lungu, he's building a new presidential palace. The symbolism is obscene. While Zambians starve, while hospitals lack medicine, while teachers go unpaid, the president is constructing a monument to himself. The government claims it's necessary infrastructure. Everyone knows it's vanity. But Lungu isn't worried about symbolism. He's worried about power. And he knows that in a fair election, he's finished. So fairness isn't part of the plan. June 2021, the campaign season officially begins. The PF deploys every weapon in its arsenal. State media broadcasts endless pro-government propaganda. Opposition rallies are disrupted by police using COVID restrictions as an excuse, but PF rallies happen without interference. They distribute cash in constituencies, promising jobs and contracts if Lungu wins. They move civil servants around the country to vote multiple times. They print extra ballot papers. The intimidation is systematic. UPND members are arrested on spurious charges. HH's campaign vehicles are impounded. His rallies are tear-gassed. Government officials openly threaten consequences if opposition areas vote wrong. You want development? Vote for us. You want to be forgotten? Vote for them. But something unexpected happens. The intimidation backfires. Young Zambians, Gen Z voters who've grown up watching their country decline aren't afraid anymore. They've seen their parents' generation cower to authority and get nothing in return. They've watched corruption normalize, watched opportunity disappear, watched their future evaporate. They have nothing left to lose. They mobilize on social media. They organize voter registration drives. They create WhatsApp groups to coordinate poll monitoring. They're tech-savvy, connected, and absolutely done with the status quo. The PF's intimidation tactics were designed for a different era. These young people film police brutality and upload it instantly. They document vote rigging in real time. They create viral content that bypasses state media entirely. The hashtag Zambia Decides trends for weeks, not because of official campaigns, but because ordinary Zambians are claiming ownership of their democracy. HH watches this youth mobilization with something close to awe. He's been campaigning for 15 years and he's never seen energy like this. These aren't people coming to rallies because a candidate inspired them. These are people who've decided to save themselves and they see HH as the vehicle for that salvation.
But he also knows what he's up against. The PF has rigged elections before. They have state machinery on their side. They control the Electoral Commission. They have unlimited resources, stolen from the National Treasury, but unlimited nonetheless. July 2021, 1 month out. HH's team runs the numbers. They model different scenarios: fair count, moderate rigging, extensive rigging. In every scenario where votes are counted honestly, HH wins in a landslide. But honest counts aren't guaranteed in Zambian elections. They develop a strategy: flood the polls. If HH wins by a small margin, it can be stolen. But if HH wins by an overwhelming margin, if the victory is so massive that rigging becomes impossible, then even a corrupt electoral commission will struggle to overturn it. The UPND launches the most comprehensive voter mobilization campaign in Zambian history. They recruit 60,000 polling agents, ordinary Zambians willing to stand at polling stations all day, watching, documenting, preventing fraud. They set up a rapid response system using mobile phones to report irregularities instantly. It's grassroots democracy building from the ground up. Every constituency, every ward, every polling station covered. The PF sees what's happening and panics. They arrest more opposition members. They increase their own vote-buying efforts. Lungu appears on television, alternating between promising prosperity and warning of chaos if he loses. The message is clear: vote for me or suffer the consequences. But the crowds at HH's rallies keep growing. In Lusaka, 50,000 people show up to hear him speak. In Kitwe, in Ndola, in Livingstone, everywhere he goes, the masses follow. These aren't renter crowds. These are people who've worked for hours, who've sacrificed a day's wage, who desperately need to believe that change is possible. HH's message is simple, consistent, and powerful. Zambia can do better. You deserve better. We have the resources, we have the talent, we just need leadership that works for you, not for itself. It's not flashy, it's not emotional manipulation. It's a businessman's pitch. Here's the problem, here's my plan, here's why I'm qualified to execute it. And after 16 years of flash without substance, Zambians are ready for substance. August 11th, 2021. The day before the election. Both sides know what's at stake. For Lungu and the PF, it's about survival. Losing power means losing protection. It means potential prosecution for corruption. It means the end of the gravy train. For HH and the UPND, it's about vindication. 5 elections, 15 years, prison, persecution, all leading to this moment. For ordinary Zambians, it's about something even more fundamental: the chance to take their country back.
August 12th, 2021, 5:47 a.m. Lusaka. The sun breaks over the capital like a promise. The air is cool, still carrying the night's chill, but already the streets are humming with movement. This isn't normal traffic. This is a nation mobilizing. At polling stations across Zambia, lines are forming in the darkness. Old women with babies wrapped on their backs, young men in worn sneakers, market vendors, teachers, miners still dusty from night shifts, students, the unemployed, the desperate, the hopeful. They've been waiting for this day. Some have been waiting their entire lives. Hakainde Hichilema votes early at his designated station in Lusaka. Photographers capture the moment, him sliding his ballot into the box, Mutinta beside him. He is composed, but his hands are steady with the kind of steadiness that comes from accepting whatever outcome awaits. He's done everything possible. The rest is up to Zambia. Across the city, Edgar Lungu votes surrounded by security personnel and party officials.
He's confident in public, smiling for cameras, waving to supporters. But his inner circle knows the truth. The internal polling is catastrophic. They're heading for a massacre at the ballot box. The voting begins officially at 6 a.m. By 6:15, some polling stations are already reporting problems. Ballot papers haven't arrived. Presiding officers are missing. In opposition strongholds, there are technical difficulties designed to suppress turnout. But the UPND's 60,000 polling agents are ready. When ballot papers are delayed, they document it. When presiding officers disappear, they call it in. When voters are turned away on bogus technicalities, they intervene. This is guerrilla democracy. Ordinary people refusing to let their votes be stolen. And the people keep coming. The lines don't shrink as the day progresses. They grow. In some areas, people wait 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours to vote. The sun climbs, beats down mercilessly. People share water. Strangers shade each other with umbrellas. Pregnant women are given priority, but even they wait hours. No one leaves. No one gives up. This is what determination looks like when an entire nation decides enough is enough. In the Copper Belt, traditionally PF territory, something unprecedented is happening. Mining communities that voted for Lungu in 2016 are switching. Men who spent years supporting the Patriotic Front are quietly, decisively choosing change. They are not making noise about it. They are just voting. The betrayal is silent but total. In rural areas, traditional chiefs, many of whom were aligned with the PF, are staying neutral or quietly supporting HH. The patronage system that kept them loyal is breaking down. Government promises of development haven't materialized. The money has dried up. And chiefs are seeing their subjects suffer while politicians drive land cruisers. By midday, social media is exploding with reports. Massive turnout everywhere. Lines that stretch for blocks. The energy is electric. International observers are filing reports. Unprecedented voter enthusiasm, determination to be heard, orderly despite challenges. But the PF isn't conceding anything. In some areas, known opposition voters find their names mysteriously missing from registers. Ballot boxes go missing in UPND strongholds. Police show up at polling stations to maintain order, which really means intimidate voters. It doesn't work. People refuse to be intimidated. When police try to disperse a line, people sit down. When officials try to close polling stations early, voters demand their right to cast ballots. There's a quiet fury in the air, not violent but immovable. HH spends the day receiving reports from across the country. Every hour, the picture becomes clearer. The turnout is massive. The mood is overwhelmingly anti-PF. Unless the rigging is absolutely brazen, the kind that would spark international condemnation, this election is going his way. But he's been here before. He's watched victory slip away in 2015 by less than 1%. He's seen courts overturn results. He's experienced the PF's ruthlessness firsthand. Hope is dangerous. He manages his expectations, focuses on ensuring the counting is transparent. 6 p.m. Polls close. The counting begins. In polling stations across Zambia, citizens crowd around as election officials empty ballot boxes and begin the count. The UPND agents watch every single ballot. They photograph the tally sheets. They transmit results to headquarters in real time using a sophisticated system the party developed specifically to prevent fraud. The first results start trickling in around 8 p.m. Small polling stations, rural areas. HH is winning. Not just winning, dominating. He's getting 70%, 80%, even 90% in some areas. The margins are staggering. By 10 p.m., results are pouring in from urban areas. Lusaka, HH is ahead. Copperbelt, HH is ahead. Even in areas that were PF strongholds, he's winning. The pattern is consistent, overwhelming, undeniable. At UPND headquarters, the mood shifts from cautious optimism to disbelief to jubilation. Staff members are refreshing tallies every few minutes. With each update, HH's lead grows. The youth volunteers who spent months organizing are crying, hugging, celebrating. This is actually happening. But HH remains calm. He's watching the Electoral Commission of Zambia's official tallies, which are moving much slower than the UPND's parallel count. He knows the game. The ECZ could delay, could manipulate, could find ways to adjust the numbers. Midnight, August 13th now. Across Zambia, people aren't sleeping. They're gathered around radios, around phones, in bars and homes and street corners, listening for results. The UPND's parallel count shows HH winning by a landslide, over 60% of the vote. The ECZ has only announced results from a fraction of polling stations, but even their numbers show HH ahead. At State House, Edgar Lungu is facing reality. His advisors present the numbers. It's not close. It's not contestable. It's a complete and total rejection by the Zambian people. Some advisors suggest challenging the results anyway. Others warn that would be too obvious, too risky. International pressure is already mounting. The African Union observers are here. The Commonwealth is watching. The entire world is paying attention. August 14th. The Electoral Commission continues releasing results. With each announcement, HH's victory becomes more certain. He's winning in all 10 provinces, rural and urban. Tonga, Bemba, Lozi, Nyanja. Ethnic lines that usually define Zambian politics are dissolving. This is a national rejection of failure, a national embrace of competence. By afternoon, the math is undeniable. Hakainde Hichilema has won with nearly 60% of the vote, the largest margin in Zambian electoral history. Edgar Lungu got barely 38%. It's not even close. At 6 p.m., the Electoral Commission officially announces it. Hakainde Hichilema is the president-elect of the Republic of Zambia. Zambia erupts.
August 14th, 2021, 6:03 p.m. Lusaka explodes in celebration. Not violent explosion, joyful explosion. People pour into the streets from every compound, every neighborhood, every corner of the city. Strangers embrace. Cars honk in rhythm. Music blares from every radio. The city that's lived under tension for years suddenly releases it all at once. Young people climb onto billboards. They dance in intersections, stopping traffic that doesn't care about being stopped because the drivers are celebrating too. Vendors abandon their stalls to join the crowds. Office workers stream out of buildings. It's spontaneous, organic, overwhelming. In the townships, Kanyama, Chaisa, Chawama, Matero, the celebration is even more intense. These are the communities that suffered most under PF rule, where unemployment was highest, where electricity cuts lasted longest, where police harassment was most brutal. They are not just celebrating a new president, they are celebrating survival. They made it through, they endured, and now, finally, there's hope. At UPND headquarters, Hakainde Hichilema stands before the cameras. Mutinta is beside him, tears streaming down her face. His children are there, his party officials, the volunteers who believed when believing seemed foolish.
He is composed, but you can see it in his eyes, the weight of 15 years lifting. The arrests, the prison time, the character assassination, the 5 elections, the countless humiliations, all of it leading to this moment. Zambians have spoken, he says. His voice is steady, measured, not triumphant, grateful. You have chosen hope over fear. You have chosen unity over division. You have chosen competence over excuses. He doesn't gloat, doesn't attack Lungu, doesn't promise miracles. He's still the economist, the businessman, the pragmatist. The work begins now. We have inherited a country in crisis. Our debt is unsustainable. Our economy is broken. Our institutions are weakened. But we will fix it together. The celebration continues through the night. In villages across southern province, cattle are slaughtered for feasts. In the copper belt, miners gather in bars, buying rounds for strangers. In Livingstone, near Victoria Falls, tourists watch, bemused as an entire city parties until dawn. But amid the celebration, there's anxiety too. Will Lungu concede? Will he try to hold on to power? The PF has shown they are willing to break rules, to arrest opponents, to use force. What if they refuse to leave? August 15th, the call comes. Edgar Lungu phones Hakainde Hichilema directly. The conversation is brief, professional. Lungu concedes defeat. He congratulates HH. He commits to a peaceful transition of power. It's a small moment, but in African politics, it's seismic. Peaceful transfers of power aren't guaranteed. In recent years, the continent has seen leaders refuse to leave, elections descend into violence, democracies backslide into autocracy. Zambia could have followed that path. Lungu had the military, the police, the state apparatus. He could have tried to cling to power. But he doesn't. Whether out of respect for democracy, fear of international consequences, or simple acceptance of defeat, it doesn't matter. The result is what counts. Zambia's democracy holds. The transition period begins. HH assembles his team. No cronies, no relatives, no political favors. He chooses technocrats, economists, lawyers, business leaders, people with actual expertise. His cabinet looks like a corporate board, not a political patronage network. The business community, initially skeptical of the businessman turned politician, starts to believe, maybe this will actually be different. Maybe competence will replace corruption. But the challenges are staggering. Zambia's debt is $17 billion, more than the country's entire annual GDP. The currency is in a free fall. Inflation is crushing. Unemployment is over 50% for young people. The power grid is failing. Hospitals lack medicine. Schools lack teachers. The infrastructure is crumbling. And the treasury is empty. The PF has looted what they could and borrowed the rest. HH is inheriting not just a crisis, but a catastrophe. August 24th, 2021, Inauguration Day. Heroes Stadium in Lusaka is packed. Tens of thousands of Zambians gather to witness history. Foreign dignitaries from across Africa and beyond attend. Former presidents, current leaders, diplomats, observers, everyone wants to see this moment. Hakainde Hichilema, the cattle herder's son from Monze, takes the oath of office. He becomes Zambia's 7th president. At age 59, after 5 attempts, after 15 years of struggle, after 127 days in prison, he's finally here. His inaugural address is vintage HH. No flowery rhetoric, no empty promises, just clear-eyed assessment of reality and a roadmap forward. We face economic hardship unprecedented in our history, he tells the nation. Our debt burden threatens our sovereignty. Our people are suffering, but I promise you this, we will not run from these problems. We will confront them with honesty, with discipline, with sacrifice. He announces immediate priorities: renegotiate the national debt, restore fiscal discipline, root out corruption, fix the energy crisis, attract investment. He sets measurable targets. He promises transparency. His government's finances will be open for scrutiny. And then he says something that shocks the political establishment. I will not be above the law. I will not use my position to enrich myself or my family, and anyone in my government who engages in corruption will be prosecuted regardless of their position or connections. It's a radical statement in Zambian politics, where presidents have historically been untouchable. The crowd roars approval. International observers make notes. This could actually be transformative. The months that follow test everything. HH assembles a team to renegotiate Zambia's debt. He opens books that the PF kept closed, revealing the full extent of the looting. Billions missing, contracts awarded to shell companies, loans taken with no documentation of how the money was spent. He presents this to the nation without sugarcoating it. This is what we inherited, this is how bad it is, and this is what we are doing to fix it. He cuts government spending ruthlessly. No more luxury vehicles for ministers, no more expensive foreign trips, no more ghost workers on the payroll. The cuts start at the top. He reduces his own salary, sells off excess presidential assets. It's symbolic, but powerful. The business community, initially skeptical of the businessman turned politician, starts to believe. Maybe this will actually be different. Maybe competence will replace corruption. The power crisis gets priority attention. He brings in energy experts, attracts investment in generation capacity, fixes the distribution system. Within months, load shedding decreases. It's not perfect. The crisis took years to create and won't be fixed overnight, but there's visible progress. Corruption prosecutions begin. Not show trials, real investigations by independent prosecutors. Some PF officials are arrested, assets are frozen, stolen money is recovered. It's slow, methodical, legal, but it's happening. This symbolism matters. For years, Zambians watched their leaders steal with impunity. Now they are watching accountability unfold. It changes something in the national psyche, the sense that maybe, just maybe, things can actually be different.
January 2022, 5 months into HH's presidency. The skeptics are still watching, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Waiting for the corruption to resurface, for the promises to fade, for the businessman to revert to type and start looting like everyone before him. It doesn't happen. HH governs exactly like he campaigned, methodically, transparently, obsessively focused on economics. Every cabinet meeting is about deliverables. Every policy decision is backed by data. He treats the presidency like a turnaround CEO treats a failing company. Identify the problems, allocate resources efficiently, measure results, adjust based on performance. It's boring, and that's exactly what Zambia needs. The debt restructuring moves forward. HH's team negotiates with China, with bondholders, with multilateral institutions. It's complex, technical work, the kind that doesn't make headlines but determines whether a nation survives or collapses. They secure agreements that extend repayment timelines, reduce interest rates, free up resources for essential services. By mid-2022, Zambia reaches a deal with the IMF, a $1.4 billion support program. Not a bailout, a partnership based on reforms. HH commits to fiscal discipline, to transparency, to ending subsidies that benefit the wealthy while claiming to help the poor. The reforms hurt. Fuel prices increase. Some government services are cut, but the pain is distributed fairly. The rich don't get exemptions, the connected don't get loopholes. And something remarkable happens. People accept it, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they trust that the sacrifice means something. When your leader is also sacrificing, cutting his own salary, flying commercial, living modestly, it's easier to accept shared burden. The economy begins stabilizing.
The kwacha stops its freefall. Inflation starts declining. Foreign investment returns. Not speculative money looking for quick profits, but real investment in mining, agriculture, manufacturing. Companies that fled under Lungu cautiously return. They are not betting on promises. They are betting on predictability, on rule of law, on a government that honors contracts. By 2023, Zambia's economy is growing again. Not explosive growth, steady, sustainable growth. Jobs are being created. The mining sector expands. Agricultural exports increase. The energy crisis eases as new generation capacity comes online and distribution improves. The change isn't just economic. There's a shift in national mood. Zambians who spent years cynical about politics start believing again. Not naively, they've been disappointed too many times, but cautiously. The government says it will do something, then actually does it. Roads that were promised get built. Hospitals that were neglected get supplies. Teachers who weren't paid get their salaries. It's basic governance, but after years of dysfunction, basic governance feels revolutionary. International recognition follows. HH isn't seeking praise, but it comes anyway. Financial Times names him African of the Year. The World Bank highlights Zambia's turnaround as a model. Other African leaders quietly start asking, how did he do it? The answer is simultaneously simple and profound. He did what he said he would. No corruption, no nepotism, no shortcuts, just competent, honest governance. But HH knows the work isn't finished. Zambia's problems run deep. Decades of mismanagement can't be fixed in 2 years. Youth unemployment is still too high. Poverty is still widespread. Infrastructure needs massive investment. Education and healthcare systems need reform. The debt, while restructured, is still a burden that will take years to overcome. And there are forces that resist change, vested interests that profited from the old system, politicians who see HH's anti-corruption drive as a threat, elements within his own party who expected that winning power meant accessing the treasury. HH disappoints them all. He's not interested in the traditional spoils of African politics. He came to fix things, not to steal. It makes him enemies, even among allies. But it also makes him something rare, a leader who actually means what he says. 3 years into his presidency, Zambia is unrecognizable from the country he inherited. The debt crisis that threatened national collapse is being managed. The economy is growing at 4 to 5% annually. Inflation is under control. The currency is stable. Foreign reserves are rebuilding. The power cuts that plagued daily life have largely disappeared. But more than statistics, there's something intangible. Hope. Young Zambians who plan to emigrate are reconsidering. Entrepreneurs who saw no future are starting businesses. Investors who wrote off Zambia are taking another look. The transformation isn't complete. HH is clear about that. He doesn't declare victory or claim success. He presents progress reports. Here's what we've accomplished. Here's what remains. Here's what we're doing next. It's the approach of someone who actually cares about results, not applause. And the results speak. Zambia, which was on the brink of becoming a failed state, is now held up as an example of what's possible when competence meets integrity, when a leader actually puts nation before self, when expertise is valued over loyalty, when institutions are strengthened instead of undermined. Hakainde Hichilema's story is more than one man's persistence. It's a template, a proof of concept. It shows that African nations don't have to accept corruption as inevitable, poverty as permanent, dysfunction as fate. It shows that a cattle herder's son with education and determination can rise to lead a nation, that 5 defeats don't define you, how you respond to them does, that prison doesn't break you, it can forge you, that wealth gained honestly can coexist with public service delivered faithfully. It shows that Africa doesn't need saviors from outside. It needs its own sons and daughters, educated, principled, stubborn enough to persist through failure, to step up and do the hard work of governance. The journey from Monze village to State House took 59 years. From businessman to president took 15 years and 5 elections. From crisis to stability is taking longer still. It's ongoing, unfinished, requiring constant attention. But the direction is clear. Zambia is rising. Not because of foreign aid or resource luck or external intervention, because its people chose competence, because they endured long enough to vote for something better, because one man refused to quit even when quitting made sense. This is the story that doesn't get told enough. The story of African excellence, of African resilience, of African leadership solving African problems, of systems working when led by people who care about making them work. Hakainde Hichilema's presidency won't be perfect. No presidency is. There will be mistakes, setbacks, compromises. But the foundation he's building of transparency, accountability, and competence will outlast him. It's changing what Zambians expect from their leaders. And expectations, once raised, are hard to lower again. The cattle herder's son proved something essential. Africa's problems are solvable. They require education, persistence, integrity, and courage. They require leaders willing to serve rather than steal. They require citizens willing to demand better and keep demanding it until they get it. Zambia chose better, and better is transforming what seemed impossible into what's simply difficult. And difficult, as HH has proven throughout his life, just means it takes longer. The rise continues. If this story moved you, if it challenged what you thought you knew about African leadership, if it reminded you that excellence and integrity can triumph over corruption and cynicism, then help us continue this work. Like this video, comment below with which African story we should tell next. Subscribe to Rise of African Nations so you never miss the narratives that history tried to bury. Read the full detailed blog post in the description below, where we dive into HH's economic policies, the specific reforms he implemented, and the lessons other nations can learn from Zambia's transformation. And most importantly, subscribe and show your support. This channel exists because you believe these stories matter, because you know that the next generation of Africans deserve to see their brilliance, their resilience, their victories celebrated. Help us keep making this content. Help us keep reclaiming these narratives. Help us keep showing the world what Africa really is. Not a continent of problems, but a continent of solutions waiting to be implemented. Subscribe now. The rise of African nations depends on us knowing our own power. And that knowledge starts with stories like this.